This is Nathan Fantasy Football League Updates. Today, we find out who joins the Rocky River Rough Riders at number 9 in the Nathan Fantasy Football League preseason polls. We'll take you through their team, their predictions for the season, and more next. Welcome back to some more Nathan Fantasy Football League updates. We are back with more preseason rankings. Hope you enjoyed the last episode. We revealed the Rocky River Rough Riders as the number 10 team in the 10-man PPR league with 2 quarterbacks, which has been great so far. And as the Rocky River Rough Riders come in at number 10, we now reveal the number 9 team today. And this one is kind of a surprise to me and most of the league, I'm sure, as this individual has been excellent in the playoffs, and they have been a playoff team every year. They have won a championship, and they usually are pretty high up on my rankings, but this time around, they are in fact not. They will be sliding in at number 9, but before we reveal that team, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below what you think of really my takes on this team. If you think this team was in a good spot, if you think this team should be higher, or, what you like about this team. And we'll see if I get back to those comments, if I agree or disagree. But nonetheless, let's get into the reveal of number 9 in the league, joining the Rocky River Rough Riders. It is the Bay City Bunnies. That is right. The Bay City Bunnies, formerly known as the League Year 1 champion, the Tampa Bay Thunderbirds, are now my 9th team in the league. That is correct. I think the Bunnies just had a weird draft. And I think they would agree as well that the draft shaped up nothing like they expected, especially because a running back in Breece Hall fell all the way past pick 8, and that is where the Bunnies picked at. They made a couple draft day trades. They had a lot of different moving pieces, but they kept their first round pick and managed to snag back-to-back second round picks with pick 13 and 14 in the second round. So they're picking back-to-back. So, especially in a 2 quarterback league, you've got to expect one of those picks is a quarterback, and it was. But let's meet this team. They've gone from championship to a preseason rankings in year 4 at the number 9 team. What happened? Well, it's all about, for me, their players they drafted. I don't necessarily mind. It's the value they took them at. A lot of reaching was done by the Bunnies, and because of that, I think it really did hurt their team's value overall, and that is why they are coming in at 9. So, first and foremost, let's meet the quarterback room. And it's not the worst quarterback room in the league. It's not too bad. Obviously, they took a quarterback with that second round pick, which was expected. But what made it crazy was the fact that the first quarterback off the board, that's right, the Bunnies took the first quarterback, and usually you'd expect Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, a Jalen Hurts, maybe even a Lamar Jackson. No, they reached for quarterback 6 in CJ Stroud. That's right. CJ Stroud was the first quarterback off the board. Granted, he had a phenomenal season last year. He's gotten more weapons, but I just don't think he's worth the best quarterback off the board. You're telling me the Bunnies passed on Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and even Lamar Jackson? I mean, for me, it was very much a stretch, very much a surprise. I know everybody at the draft table was caught off guard, and really, this move, it's got to work out, or there's going to be problems for this Bunnies organization. But they go CJ Stroud, and I think he's a great quarterback. I think if you would have picked in the 3rd round and gotten him there, I wouldn't have problems. But the first quarterback off the board and letting Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes fall is absurd to me. But nonetheless, CJ Stroud, good potential. He's got great weapons, as I mentioned, but that's already going to hurt your value that you took CJ Stroud with your number 3 pick. Before that, you picked up some good pieces, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But the second quarterback in this room, it's Matt Stafford, which honestly, I love him as a quarterback too. He's got great weapons all across the board. The Rams offense loves to throw the ball, and there's going to be plenty of points available for Stafford to get. The only problem is, obviously, with age, health concerns are the problem. So if Stafford can stay healthy, I like this punch, but knowing the value, not necessarily loving CJ Stroud, knowing that could be a Josh Allen. Looking further into the board, their other second-round pick was not wasted, but used on a running back. But again, they reached to get a running back as the best available running backs in the second round were off the board. Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, even Jahmyr Gibbs had gone previously. So they went and reached on Derrick Henry as their running back one, which granted, I don't mind Derrick Henry as a running back. However, we know he's in a new situation, and can Lamar Jackson take his carries? Will he be a good back in Baltimore? Only time will tell. So this could turn out to be a great pick once again, but a little bit of reaching. You passed on guys like Kyron Williams, who honestly I think would have been a better, more secure option than reaching on an older running back that we definitely don't know what he's going to do. Pairing up in the running back room with Derrick Henry, though, you picked up Aaron Jones, which I love. Obviously, another new face in a new place. And Aaron Jones is more of that dual threat receiving back that you love to see. He was great with the Packers for fantasy. I think he'll be great for the Vikings, especially with, J.J. McCarthy being there. That offense might become a little bit more run supportive. Obviously, Sam Darnold is set to start the season, but still, I don't mind Aaron Jones there. It's a good running back room. I don't hate it, but once again, it comes down to where you drafted them compared to the players on the board. Then we get to your wide receiver room, and this is where the first round pick happened. Obviously, this is a guy who the past couple of years, the draft has been, he picks at 8 every year. It's all random, but picks at 8 pretty much every year, and he goes running back. We've seen him go Dalvin Cook, we've seen him go Najee Harris, and we've seen him go Austin Eckler. None of those have really panned out. So, granted, you can expect him to go away from that, and when all the top receivers go off the board, he was scrambling and went and got pick 10, or rather pick 8, but the 10th best player on the board, A.J. Brown, brought him in. I don't really know if A.J. Brown, for me, is a first-round guy. He obviously was fantastic last year for the Eagles, and obviously new offensive coordinator. We talked about this in the last episode with Devontae Smith, but same things apply. Is Devontae Smith going to take over in this offense? And A.J. Brown is left in the dust. We really don't know from a week-to-week basis who is going to get the football, and that's a little concerning. Can I trust A.J. Brown to be a secure player like that of Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the guys ahead of him? I don't really think so. And even the guys behind him like Puka Nacua or even Garrett Wilson, I don't really know how A.J. Brown stacks up, and that leaves a lot of question marks for me, but obviously, a new direction for the Bunnies. They don't want that first-round running back. They get him in the second round. They go A.J. Brown. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, the plan was a little scattered, and, when the draft board doesn't fall your way, you've got to be able to adjust. And those first 3 picks, definitely some adjustments trying to be made. And that brings us to wide receiver 2. The second Ravens player on this team, it's Zay Flowers, which he was great last season, and now he begins his sophomore season after a really productive fantasy year. So I love this wide receiver 2 pickup. It's a solid receiving core. However, Zay Flowers, it's a run-prominent offense. You bring in Derrick Henry and obviously Lamar Jackson. A lot of running going to be done. And even Mark Andrews is more of a red zone threat, as we've known him to be for the Baltimore Ravens when they're airing it out. So can Zay Flowers chip into that workload? Only time will tell, but Zay Flowers, I don't mind it. I think it's a safe wide receiver 2 pickup. So the 1-2 punch, I don't really mind there from the Bunnies. And that brings us to the tight end room. This was the second tight end off the board, and honestly, in my opinion, the best tight end in the draft. It's Sam Laporta. That's right, the sophomore tight end who was exceptional last year for the Lions. He led all tight ends in touchdown receptions. He really is a great player. Obviously, with the tight end position, you're going to get the ups and the downs, but with Sam Laporta, you got to feel pretty secure, even though it's a tough receiving room for the Lions. So there will be weeks that Sam Laporta doesn't really live up to the value that you drafted him at the 4th round. That's why I felt like Sam Laporta and Travis Kelce were a little high for fantasy value. The tight end position, I would have liked them more in the 5th and the 6th round, where more of the Mark Andrews, Trey McBrides were. But nonetheless, you get Sam Laporta. Great player. I had him last year in fantasy, and I thought, obviously as a rookie, he was phenomenal, and you hope he can continue that production with his sophomore season. So nothing to complain about at the tight end position. Now we move on to the flex position. We go back to the receiving room. It's Calvin Ridley coming in a new face, in new place. That continues to be the theme here for the Bunnies. And Calvin Ridley obviously had a really roller coaster season with the Jaguars. Some weeks he was 30, 28 fantasy points a game. Others, he was not even getting looked at. It was like 5 a game. So, can you really rely on Calvin Ridley? Obviously, he's in Tennessee, which kind of stocked their receiving room. Tyler Boyd, DeAndre Hopkins, he'll miss a couple of weeks though. And now Calvin Ridley. So who is going to become the prominent option? That's the question I really have, and only time will tell. So with Calvin Ridley, I'm very 50-50. He's shown potential, but that is what you're looking for in a flex, where he can go out and score. But the downside is it could be a bad week, but obviously new offense. So we don't really know how Calvin Ridley's outlook can shape up. Can he return to that Atlanta Falcons type of production before he left? Now we look at the special teamers. This will be pretty quick. He gets the Chiefs defense, so a little bit later on the defensive side, but still, a pretty easy AFC West. Can allow you to pretty much start this Chiefs defense every week, or at least 6 times this season. Obviously a couple tough games mixed in there, but still feel good about the Chiefs defense. Maybe a couple waiver wire weeks, but still solid pickup with the Chiefs. Kami Fairburn is going to be the kicker for Houston. Obviously, if they score a lot of extra points, and obviously if drives stall out, even better, because you can, pick up 3 points with the field goal attempts. And then Riley Dixon, the Denver punter, is rounding out the special teams unit. Denver, tough offense, probably going to be a rough season, so you don't mind going punter. Now let's get into this bench, which it's a decent bench. I wouldn't say it compares as well to the Rough Riders. I'd say the Rough Riders have a more sound bench. However, there are some solid pieces here on the bench unit for the Bunnies. First and foremost, I look at that of Zach Moss, who is supposed to be the lead back in Cincinnati. I don't mind it. He's a good receiving threat and can run the rock a little bit. We saw Joe Mixon have some productive games in that offensive scheme. So Zach Moss, a solid pickup off the bench. So obviously there you can fill a flex position. How about another flex option or even wide receiver option? Terry McLaurin off the bench. He was definitely a late steal in the draft. He obviously gets a new quarterback in Washington. He really doesn't have much of a competition with their other receivers in that room. Jahan Dotson has really not lived up to the hype, but still, Terry McLaurin, I love the pick, and I think he can be an excellent option for you to either play in that flex or even in the wide receiver slot. So I love the pick of Moss and McLaurin. And then the third guy in this room, Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard off the bench. I love it. Tony Pollard was a guy that was picked late. Obviously, we don't know if him or Spears is going to be the lead back, but I think Tony Pollard will eventually take over. He's still, well into his prime, I'd say. And obviously, last year with Dallas was not an exceptional season, but I think this year he can really step out in a Tennessee offense that I think will still want to run the rock a little bit more. And I think Tony Pollard's a great exception that you can either play at your flex again or running back. So you've got the top 3 really excellent picks. And then the bench kind of, goes to that 50-50 zone, which can be dangerous, can be good. You went out and got Keon Coleman. So you went out and got a rookie. I like this approach from the Bunnies. Keon Coleman, obviously in his first year, and he is, in my opinion, he is primed to be one of those top receivers for the Bills if everything pans out well. Obviously, he's a little bit undersized, but I think he's got great speed and good hands, and I think obviously you've got to take a risky pick. I think a lot of teams, you go out and get a rookie or get a guy who's in a good situation, and obviously he's on your bench. So it's a guy who, if he pans out, awesome. But if he doesn't, that's why he's buried on the depth chart. So I think this is a great risk pick with some high rewards, because obviously Buffalo's in a tough receiving situation after all of their guys left. And then obviously if he doesn't, it's all good. You've got Terry McLaurin and Calvin Ridley ahead of him. Then we look further on this bench. Gus Edwards, a Los Angeles Charger now. He's going to be in the running back room along with former Ravens teammate J.K. Dobbins. So kind of funny, those two followed each other. You'd expect them to try to disperse, but the Chargers are going to be run heavy this year under a Harbaugh offense that loves to run. I think Gus Edwards is a solid pick. Obviously, we don't know how the backfield share is going to go, but J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, it's Gus Edwards leading that backfield, so I love that pick as well. And then the final two picks, not too keen on. Daniel Jones is your quarterback 3. I really think he is a horrible NFL quarterback. Obviously, fantasy-wise, he's got the rushing upside, but he's in a horrible offense. I don't really like anybody in that Giants offense, so Daniel Jones, I'm really out on. Hopefully, you only have to use him on bye weeks. But obviously, I'm imagining the Bunnies will be in the market for some of those waiver wire quarterbacks. And then rounding out is Darnell Mooney, who will be one of those top receiving options in a new place in Atlanta. We'll see how that offense shapes up. I don't expect to see a lot of Darnell Mooney unless he has, a breakout year in this new offensive scheme in Atlanta. But nonetheless, it's a good piece to round out the bench, which overall, I don't mind. It's not a top bench, but I still think it's got some solid pieces. And that now brings us to our final segment, my predictions for the Bay City Bunnies. What do I think they can do? Can they make some noise this year? Well, I've got them ranked at 9. I think, obviously you reached on a lot of players. Knowing that could be at quarterback Josh Allen and at running back Kyron Williams, obviously, there are some pieces that could have been changed up, and there was some value, I think, lost on the board. Because of that, I think this is a team that a lot of new guys in new places that could not turn out how we hope. And I think, a lot of that was pinned on, these guys are going to succeed in their new homes. Because of that, the floor for the Bunnies is 3-11. This could go really sideways if Derrick Henry doesn't pan out, if CJ Stroud, doesn't really live up to the hype of being the number 1 quarterback off the board, if A.J. Brown continues to be like a 50-50 guy on a week-to-week basis. Now, on the other side of things, if, all these guys work out in their new homes and everything goes well, the ceiling for this Bunnies team is 8-6. I think they'll be very competitive if, guys figure it out in new places, some of these sophomore players, or even some of these bench guys break out. I think this could be a solid competitive Bunnies team, but the way, based on the value of the draft picks, I just don't see it. And I also think some of these, guys in new places is not going to go well. And finally, that brings us to my prediction for this team, and obviously I have them ranked at 9. I think they get one more game than the Rough Riders do. It's a 5-9 final record for the Bay City Bunnies. I think it's their worst finish in the league. It'll be a tough year. I think, hopefully you avoid some injuries, but a couple of these guys are very injury prone, and obviously some of them are coming off injuries. You've got a little bit of age, a little bit of young grouping, but it'll be interesting to see how this Bunnies team plays out. I've got a lot of question marks, and obviously, you sit here knowing you could have had this player. What if you had this guy? So that rounds out my number 9 team in the preseason polls, the Bay City Bunnies, and we'll see if they can prove me wrong or if they will struggle off the gates. They're in a tough division, so we'll see how they manage to go and if guys can really find their stride in new places. Well, thanks again for tuning in to the number 9 team, the Bay City Bunnies, and we'll have the number 8 team to you really soon. Really excited to take you through the preseason polls and get you ready for this season. Once again, let me know in the comments if you agree with my takes or if you disagree, what you think, or if you think actually the Rough Riders should have been ahead of the Bunnies. But nonetheless, let me know, and we'll have more updates for you very soon. Number 8 team coming out just around the corner here on the Nathan Sports Talks channel. We'll see you again real soon. Have a good one.